December 26, 2025. Most of America is recovering from Christmas, half asleep, scrolling through their social media feeds. Then, a 42-minute video appears. A 23-year-old with camera is knocking on doors in Minnesota, confronting daycare workers, making accusations about fraud. Within 24 hours, that video has a few 100,000 views. Nothing extraordinary for YouTube, but then something changes. December 27th, JD Vance reposts it. Elon Musk shares it. The views explode. From 200,000 followers to 800,000 in 72 hours. By week's end, 116 million views on X alone. 1.6 million on YouTube. Federal raids launched. State funding frozen. A political firestorm ignited. The creator? Nick Shirley, a former high school prankster who once flew to New York without telling his parents. Now he's sitting in the White House, briefing the president, while the FBI director publicly praises his work. This isn't a story about journalism. It's a story about algorithms, about how platforms decide who gets amplified, who becomes powerful, and how a 23-year-old with no journalism degree can bypass every traditional gatekeeper to become one of the most influential political voices in America overnight. Welcome to the algorithmic political pipeline, where anyone can become a power player as long as they understand the rules of the game. Let's rewind to understand how we got here. Nick Shirley started his YouTube channel as a teenager, posting prank videos and stunts. At 16, he filmed himself flying to New York without parental consent. 3 years later, he tricked TikTokers into auditioning for a fake Justin Bieber music video. Classic creator content, entertaining, personality-driven, designed for views. But the views weren't massive. After years of grinding, he had around 7,000 followers by high school graduation. Not bad, but not life-changing either. Then in 2021, he announced he was quitting YouTube. He spent 2 years on a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Santiago, Chile. When he came back in late 2023, something had fundamentally changed. The pranks were gone. The entertainment was gone. Now, every video had one focus: politics. His first videos after returning centered on immigration and the border crisis. Immediately, he gained significantly more views than his previous content. His video titled, "I Investigated the NYC Migrant Crisis," posted in February 2024, surpassed 1 million views for the first time. Let me repeat that: years of prank videos, modest success. One pivot to political content. Instant million view breakout. This wasn't an accident. Nick had discovered what the algorithm loves: conflict, controversy, and political emotion. See, YouTube's algorithm doesn't care about entertainment value or production quality the way it used to. It cares about engagement. And nothing drives engagement like politics. Nothing keeps people watching, commenting, sharing, and coming back like content that makes them angry, scared, or morally outraged. Research shows that algorithms prioritize content based on emotional resonance. A study found that each additional more emotional word in social media content increases its virality significantly. Posts that trigger anger, fear, or strong emotions perform exponentially better than neutral content. The algorithms aren't deliberately seeking out divisive content. They're just amplifying whatever makes people click, watch, and react. And political content, especially when it frames issues as urgent threats or exposes wrongdoing, is algorithmic gold. Nick didn't need a journalism degree to figure this out. He just needed to understand human psychology and platform mechanics. And once he cracked the code, there was no going back. Now let's talk about how the Minnesota video went from a few 100,000 views to over 116 million. The video was posted on December 26th, the day after Christmas, typically one of the slowest news days of the year. Initially, it spread to conservative figures like Nick Sorter, Gunther Eagleman, and Colin Rugg. This is standard influencer networking. People with aligned audiences sharing each other's content to boost visibility. But then came the inflection point. December 27th, JD Vance and Elon Musk reposted the video. Musk has long commented about allegations of fraud in immigrant communities. Since then, he's amplified the story multiple times, framing it as emblematic of government waste and a failure of mainstream media. When the richest man in the world, who owns a platform where your content lives, personally shares your video, something extraordinary happens. The algorithm doesn't just recommend your content, it supercharges it. This is what researchers call algorithmic amplification at scale. When high-profile accounts engage with content, platforms interpret that as a signal of quality and relevance. The algorithm then pushes that content to exponentially more users. It's not just Musk's 200 million followers seeing it. It's the algorithm deciding this content deserves to be seen by everyone. And here's the critical part. Shirley's follower count shot up from around 200,000 in early December to more than 800,000 by December 29th. A 300% increase in 72 hours. Think about what that means. Traditional journalists spend decades building credibility, sources, and audience. Nick Shirley gained more influence in 3 days than most reporters acquire in their entire careers. Not because of superior journalism, but because he understood the algorithmic game and had the right amplifiers. This is the new media landscape. Gatekeepers don't matter. Credentials don't matter. What matters is, does your content trigger emotional engagement? Do you have the right ideological alignment with powerful amplifiers? Can you create content that the algorithm rewards? Studies on social media algorithms reveal they function as systematic amplifiers of political polarization. Research shows algorithms designed to maximize engagement serve less moderate content, more politically aligned sources, and prioritize posts that generate strong reactions, especially anger. The platforms don't need to consciously promote divisive content. They just need to chase engagement metrics, and the rest follows naturally. Nick Shirley's story is the blueprint. And now that everyone has watched it happen in real time, the race is on. Thousands of aspiring content creators just learned. Political expose videos plus emotional framing plus algorithmic optimization equals massive audience equals power. Here's where things get really interesting. Because Nick Shirley didn't just go viral, he got access. By October 2024, Shirley was invited to speak at the White House during a roundtable with President Trump about Antifa. A 23-year-old YouTuber, sitting at the table with the President of the United States, treated as a legitimate journalist and political advisor. How does this happen? How does someone go from making prank videos to presidential briefings in less than 3 years? The answer is, the algorithm created a new pathway to power. In the old media ecosystem, you'd need to work your way up through established institutions. Start at a local paper, maybe move to regional news, eventually get noticed by national outlets, build a reputation over decades. The system was slow, hierarchical, and controlled by gatekeepers who decided who was credible. The algorithmic ecosystem has demolished that pathway. Now, you can build massive influence directly with audiences, bypass traditional institutions entirely. And if your message aligns with powerful political forces, get elevated straight to the top. The Trump administration has embraced what they call new media, giving unprecedented access to influencers and content creators while restricting traditional journalists. This isn't accidental. It's strategic. Traditional journalists ask hard questions, demand evidence, fact-check claims. Aligned influencers amplify messages, create emotional narratives, and mobilize audiences. Nick Shirley represents the perfect case study. He's not constrained by editorial standards, fact-checking processes, or institutional accountability. He can create content that traditional newsrooms would never approve. Confrontational, accusatory, emotionally charged. And because it performs well algorithmically, he gets rewarded with visibility, influence, and access. The incentive structure is now clear. Create content the algorithm loves, align with the right political forces, and you can leapfrog every traditional pathway to influence. This is what one analyst called the birth of instant political influencers. People with no background in reporting, no institutional affiliation, no accountability, but massive audiences and direct lines of political power, all created by algorithmic amplification. Research shows that social media platforms' engagement-driven algorithms substantially change what content users see and how they behave. When algorithms prioritize emotionally charged, politically divisive content, they're not just reflecting society, they're actively shaping it, creating new power structures and new paths to influence that didn't exist a decade ago. Now, let's talk about what happens when algorithmic fame meets real-world policy. Within days of Nick's video going viral, the consequences were dramatic and immediate. The Trump administration froze child care funding to Minnesota. Federal raids were launched. FBI Director Kash Patel announced a surge in personnel and investigative resources to the state. Dozens of facilities were visited by federal agents. State funding programs were suspended pending additional verification. Let that sink in. A single YouTube video, created by someone with no investigative journalism training, directly triggered federal law enforcement action and the suspension of millions in state funding. Families relying on child care assistance were suddenly scrambling. CNN correspondent Whitney Wild later interviewed Shirley outside one of the daycares and filmed children actually being dropped off at the facility he claimed was fraudulent. When confronted about visiting during school hours when children wouldn't be present, his methods came under scrutiny. But here's the thing, by the time questions about methodology emerged, the damage was done. The algorithmic wave had already crashed, the political narrative was set, and federal action was underway. This reveals something crucial about how algorithms interact with political power in 2025. Speed matters more than accuracy. Emotional impact matters more than verification. Narrative matters more than nuance. Traditional investigative journalism operates on a different timeline. Reporters spend months verifying facts, building sources, ensuring accuracy before publication. In the algorithmic ecosystem, that's a competitive disadvantage. The first person to create emotionally compelling content wins, regardless of whether it's fully accurate. And once content goes algorithmically viral, it creates its own reality. Politicians respond to it. Law enforcement acts on it. The media covers a controversy. Even if later reporting raises questions, the original narrative has already shaped policy and public opinion. Research on algorithmic amplification confirms this dynamic. Studies show that emotionally charged content spreads faster than factual corrections. Misinformation can reach millions before fact checks even begin. And in politically polarized environments, people are more likely to believe content that confirms their existing views, regardless of accuracy. The Minnesota case shows the full cycle. Algorithm amplifies content, political figures boost signal, mass audience engagement, media coverage, policy action, real-world consequences. All happening faster than traditional verification processes can keep up. This is the new normal. Algorithms don't just shape what we see, they shape what happens. Nick Shirley's experience could only happen in today's media and political environment, where seemingly anyone can go viral, helped along by social media gatekeepers. In 1 week, he went from relative obscurity to 116 million views and federal investigations. From YouTube creator to White House advisor. From prank videos to political power broker. The algorithm made him famous. The algorithm gave him influence. The algorithm changed real-world policy. This isn't about Nick Shirley specifically. He's just the clearest example of a larger transformation happening right now. The algorithmic political pipeline is real, it's powerful, and it's fundamentally reshaping how information flows, how power works, and how democracy functions in the digital age. Traditional media organizations are scrambling to adapt, but they're constrained by ethics, standards, and verification processes that the algorithm doesn't reward. Independent creators are rising fast, but they're driven by metrics that prioritize engagement over accuracy. Political leaders are embracing this new ecosystem because it gives them direct access to motivated audiences without pesky journalistic scrutiny. And all of it is mediated by algorithms, opaque systems optimized for engagement, controlled by a handful of tech platforms, with enormous power to determine what billions of people see, believe, and do. The future is already here. The algorithm is deciding who becomes famous, who becomes powerful, and what narratives shape our politics. The only question is, what are we going to do about it?